Okay, let's go over the pieces that we're going to need to make the Essentials wallet clutch. So starting over here, we have a long piece here that is going to be our card slots, and then we have two pieces that will go on either side of the card slots. We have, that'll be one of our lining panels. We have another just plain lining panel, so that'll take care of our two lining panels. For our front, we have two pieces, an exterior and a lining, and these are cut mirrored because the zipper is going to go here, and so you want to make sure that the lining is cut mirrored to the exterior fabric. So you have two of those. Same thing here, an exterior and a lining, and the lining is cut mirrored so it matches. And then we're going to have the zipper here in the front. Now there is an option where you can have another angle cut here, so you could feature a fabric here, or just have more of a color block type front. And then in that case, this piece would still be the same, and this one you would just sew that together to create a piece that looks like this. Okay, then you have your two top accent pieces, a zipper tab end. You have a longer zipper, a shorter zipper, and then you'll have a length of strap webbing, or here if you're making your own, I'm using waterproof canvas. You will have one of those. I am using two. I'm actually going to be cutting this in half because I'm going to be making a double-sided wrist strap. So I will show you how I do that when we get there. But that's all you need. Optional tools, I would also grab some double-sided tape, some clips, a seam ripper just in case, and that should be all. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so to make the wrist strap, as the way that the pattern instructions are written, you would take your length of strap. You could use a 1/2 inch piece of strap webbing, or in this case, this is a 2-inch wide piece of fabric. You would fold it to the center, and then you would fold each long side to the center, fold it in half like that to make your strap. So since I am doing a double-sided wrist strap, I'm using 1/2 inch hardware. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this down by half. So I only want it to be 1 inch wide. I can set this to the side. I actually could use that for another wrist strap. And then I'm using another piece. Now I'm using all waterproof canvas for this project. I am not using any interfacing on any of the fabric. So if you see that, it's going to be a little more flexible, and that's usually how I like my bags to be. Okay, so turning it over to the back side now, in the center, what we want to do is grab, let me grab a pen here. We're going to draw a line down the center. You can kind of see that. All right, there we go. Now what we want to do is we want to fold the fabric to meet that center line. Okay, what I'm going to be doing is using some double-sided tape. This is 1/2 inch double-sided tape. I'm just going to lay it right down the center. On each piece. Okay, and then removing the paper backing, you should still be able to see the line you drew down the center there. And I'm just going to fold that side in to meet that center line. I'm going to do that for both strips here. Okay, once you have both of those folded to the center like that, you're going to flip it over so that you have the raw edge, or where the seam is located, on the bottom. And I'm going to take some smaller double-sided tape now and just lay it down the center. Doesn't have to be perfect. This is just going to hold my 2 layers together. So again, I'm working on the bottom side, the wrong side, the side that has that seam that we folded to the center. And then I'm going to take the other one and lay it right on top. You could also use clips to help hold this in place, or you could use double-sided, not double-sided glue. Glue doesn't have a side. Double-sided tape or glue or clips to help hold it. I'm just using double-sided tape here, so that's what my wrist strap is going to look like. Now I am just going to sew at 1/8 of an inch all the way around all 4 sides of the wrist strap. Okay, now that that is stitched, my strap is together. You can figure out which side you want to be the exterior and which side you want to be the lining. I think for mine, I want the print to be on the outside and the solid to be on the inside. Now, one thing I am going to do is I want to give it a little finish because it will have a raw edge here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut a piece of cork. That is, let me just double check. It is 1/2 of an inch wide, this strip, and I'm cutting it so that it is, let me see, hold on, I want to do this the other way. No, this is the right way. I'm cutting it so it is just slightly larger than 1/2 of an inch, and then I'm going to, let's see, let's do 3/4 of an inch. Let's see how that looks, because I have extra if I want. Okay, so what I want to do is I just want to wrap this over the end. I just think that's going to give it a nice, yeah, I think that 3/4 inch on the smaller strap looks really good. So you could add some glue, you could add a little bit of double-sided tape, which I'm just going to do down the center. I'll show you what that's going to look like here. We're going to wrap it over the edge here, folding it right in half. Okay, so that's how that edge is looking. I'm going to now just take it to the sewing, actually let me move it over a little bit here. I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and sew just a line straight across here, and that's going to attach this to the end of my strap. Okay, now that that is attached right to the end, I'm just going to use my lighter and lightly singe the ends here. All right, that looks good. Now we need to take our strap end hardware, and what we're going to do is we're going to fold it down. So we're going to bring it towards the end where we have this little tab, probably about 1 inch or so away from the tab end, and then we're going to fold it over like that. So what we did is we just, again, slid the D-ring hardware onto the strap, brought it to about 1 inch or so away from the end of this strap, bring the other end of your strap to meet up with the hardware, and then we're going to fold it over. So it looks something like this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a row of stitching right here along this hardware. So as close as I can get to this hardware, I'm also going to add another stitch, a row of stitching right here. And then optionally, if you wanted to, you could always add a rivet right here to hold it in place. Okay, so here is how your finished strap looks with the little tab on this end. And again, like I said, you could add a rivet here if you wanted to, although it's not necessary. I think it's just a neat little way to finish off your wrist strap. Okay, now that the wrist strap is done, we can set this to the side and move on to the next step. Okay, for the next step, we're going to work on the front panel. So right now we need our left pieces are right pieces. Again, if you had that angled front piece here, you should have yours already stitched together so you have a piece that looks like this. And then we need our shorter zipper. Okay, so we're going to attach the left side first. So we want the zipper opening up towards the top. So that means the flat end of the zipper pull is down towards the bottom. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our exterior piece, flip it over, and then we're going to, the zipper is longer than it needs to be. So that is on purpose because it can be a little tricky sometimes to work on angles. So I gave us a little extra room for that. So what you want to do is you just want to clip these two in place. Again, the zipper is right side up, so teeth side up. And then your printed piece is right side down. And you're clipping along this raw edge. So if you're following me here, make sure your zipper pull is going, opening and closing towards the right. And then this is your exterior piece. Now you could base this on at 1/8 of an inch if you want, or flip it over, and we're going to take the lining piece, again, making sure that it is mirrored because you want your right sides out when we turn it through. So this one is mirrored to the exterior, right side down against the back side of the zipper. And we are just clipping in place straight across. Okay, now we're going to sew straight across here at about 1/4 of an inch, or as close as you can get to the zipper teeth. If you have a zipper foot, you could use that. Otherwise, sew at about 1/4 of an inch straight across. Then we're going to flip both panels away from the zipper. So it'll be like that. And we will top stitch at 1/8 of an inch down this folded edge. Okay, now that we have that one attached and top stitched, that's how that is looking. So now we need to attach the other side. And this can be tricky because we're working on angles. If you were to line this up exactly and then fold it over, it would not line up because of the angle. So a really a trick or tip that I like to use is, because we're using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, what I will do is I will come down and mark straight across at 1/4 of an inch. I'll just make a little mark right there. And then from there, that's where I'm going to, as you can see, it's a 1/4 inch down. I'm going to line the edge of my exterior panel, my other exterior panel. I'm going to line it up with that mark and clip straight down. Again, the teeth are right side up on the zipper. The exterior panel is right side down. You can base stitch again if you want, or flip it over, and then taking the other piece here, again mirrored so that when you lay it down it should match up exactly. And then I'm just going to match it up like that with the exterior piece. Okay, and then I'm going to clip that in place. And just like we did on the other side, we're going to sew this at 1/4 of an inch, flip both pieces back away from the zipper, and then top stitch. Okay, as you can see, that lined up pretty perfectly by measuring down that 1/4 of an inch, since I knew I was using 1/4 inch seam allowance. If you were using 3/8 inch seam allowance, you could always measure down 3/8 of an inch, mark it, line the edge of your panel up that way, and then that way when you fold it back, it should line up perfectly. That's just a little tip that I like to use when working with angles, because it can be tricky and it can be really frustrating after, taking the time to cut and sew and everything, and then you flip it back and it's uneven. That can be really frustrating. Okay, so now that we have that together, that's what it looks like. What we need to do now is take our other small piece that should line up pretty close to, I might have just cut mine a little bit off, but that's okay, I'm not too worried about that. It should line up pretty close to the size of this panel here. So now what we're going to do, I'm going to line mine up with the top here. Yeah, I'm going to line mine up at the top, clip it in place. I'm going to just baste stitch all the way around the outside of this panel. Okay, now that that is all attached and basted on, you can see that is what is creating our front pocket. So we have the back lining on our front pocket, and so that all is looking good. Now I will trim off the rest of this excess zipper here in just a second, but what you want to do now is grab one of your accent pieces. So this is your top accent strip. We're going to flip it over, lay it right sides down, so the panels are right sides together. And we're going to clip it along the top edge here. And let me just center it here a little bit more. There we go. If I have any overhang, I will just trim it off after I sew it down. But what I will do now is sew straight across here according to the seam allowance in the pattern instructions. Then I will flip this up, top stitch, and then trim off. Actually, I will stitch first, trim off the excess, and then flip it up and top stitch. Okay, once you have that top accent band attached, the front panel is done for now. We can set this to the side. We're going to do the exact same thing with the back panel. And I might have mentioned, or I might have forgot to mention, that we do need a back panel, but we do. We are going to take the other band, put it down right sides so they're right sides together. Again, same thing. We're going to stitch along at 1/4 of an inch, flip it up, top stitch across at 1/8 of an inch. Okay, a little full disclosure here. While I was recording, my battery died on my mic, so the remainder of this video I will be voicing over the instructions. So if my hands are flying around and not making any sense to what I'm saying, that's why. I never realized I talked so much with my hands. But here what I'm showing is I'm going to be adding my little woven label, and I'm deciding on which side of the panel that I want my label to be. So since I want it to be towards the bottom of the bag when I'm holding it, my wrist strap will be on the other side. So I'm attaching the woven label here to the right side so that when I'm holding it, the little label is hanging down towards the bottom of the panel. Okay, moving on to the lining panels. We have our one main lining panel, which is completely done, so we can set that to the side. Fastest panel you've ever created, right? All right, moving on to the card slots. So we have our two side pieces that will be going on the side of the card slots. And then we have our longer main center piece. And on the back of the panel, I have already marked the lines where we will be folding the card slots to make our card slot panels. So at each marked line, we're going to go in and snip just about 1/8 of an inch. You just want a tiny snip just to mark where the line placement is. You're going to be doing that on both sides of the panel. This is going to help us while we're making our folds later on so that we know to match right up to those snip lines. Okay, once you have all of your snips made, what I'm going to do here is just mark the top and the bottom. Since we're going to be starting to fold this panel from the bottom, if you're using directional fabric, it does help to make sure that you are folding the right direction. So here I'm just making a T at the top and a B for the bottom, just to help us keep it in order, going the right direction. We're going to start folding from the bottom. So that first marked line, we're going to fold it so that it is wrong sides together. And we're going to fold right on that drawn line and right where our snips are on the sides. Give that a nice good finger press there. Now we're going to flip the panel over and get ready to make the second fold. So this fold will be right sides together. We're going to take our folded corner that we just made and finding where that first snip line is right there on the side, we're going to take that folded piece, match it up to that first snip line right there, lining that up, making sure everything matches, and then give it a good finger press. That's to help hold it in place. If you have a seam roller, you can use that. That will also help to hold your seams together, but that's what we have going so far. Now what we want to do is flip it back over, and at that next fold line, where the next little snip is in the side, we're going to fold the panel back again, so it is now wrong sides together. We're matching up that snip lines on either side and giving it a finger press right across that line, making sure the snip lines are matching up. And then pressing it with your fingers. All right, flipping it back over, that's how it's looking so far. We've got our first and second fold lines made, and it is about 1/4 of an inch apart, which is exactly what it should be. Okay, now that that is just exactly right, I'm going to add a clip here on the side just to help hold everything in place, making sure that it doesn't slip at all. Since I am using a ripstop nylon, it is a bit slippery, so I like to do that just to help hold everything in place. All right, now we're going to repeat the same process to make the next card slot. So taking our top fold line, we're going to find that bottom snip in that next set of snips, and we're going to match the fold line right up with that snip, and then give it a good finger press again. That's to make that bottom fold, and then flipping it over, that's what it looks like on the back side. We are now going to fold it again, wrong sides together on that top line, that top snip. So it's back on itself, wrong sides together, making that third card line, that third card slot fold. Again, looking at it from the front, making sure everything matches up just right. We're going to snip that or clip that in place. Our last fold we're going to be making is on that last snip line. So the top card slot, we're going to match it up to that last snip line, clip it in place, adjust the clips so that it stays where you want it to be, and then clip it in place, give it a nice finger press, and then there you have your 3 card slots. Your panel is folded into your 3 individual card slots. Okay, so the next thing we need to do here is top stitch along each folded piece. So each of the 3 card slots, we're going to fold the material back, top stitch along the first card slot, fold that back, top stitch along the second, and then repeat for the third. After you get those top stitched, you want to baste stitch down the side just to help your pockets to stay in place. We don't want them slipping and sliding. Okay, once you have that done, this is what it looks like here with our 3 individual card slots. Now what I'm going to do here is just add a cute little woven label. It says "You Matter." I think that's just a nice affirmation to have inside of your little clutch. As you open it up, you see it in there, just a nice little reminder that you do matter. So I'm adding that to the side of the card slot panel here. And then taking the 2 sides, notice that my center panel is a little bit wider, and that could just happen to be how I folded those lines. I did give a little extra room in the pattern, so don't worry if yours is a little bit larger as well. Just match those side panels up to the top of the card slot panel that we just made, clipping in place along the sides. Once we get everything sewn together, we can just trim it off on the bottom and everything will match. So again, right sides together, lining it up with the top of that center panel, clipping it in place, and then we are going to sew along each side according to the seam allowance provided in the pattern instruction. Press both panels away from that center panel, and then we are going to top stitch right along that folded edge. We're going to do that on both sides. Okay, here is our completed card slot panel with the sides on and top stitched. Now what we need to do is just trim off the bottom here to finish off our card slot panel. So any excess, just go ahead and trim that right off the bottom. So here's our card panel with our cute little woven label, our 3 card slots. That panel is complete. We have our other lining panel, our 2 exterior panels, our wrist strap, and our main zipper and zipper tab end, and now we are ready to start to put this together. Okay, to begin final assembly, we have to finish our main zipper, so we need to attach the zipper tab end to the closed end of the zipper. So laying your zipper tab end right side down on the end of the zipper that has the flat end of the zipper pull. So that is the closed end. Your rounded side of the zipper pull will be the open and closed side here. Mine is on the right, so I want the zipper tab on the left, right side down, clipping in place. We are going to stitch at 1/4 of an inch, fold it back and under, and then top stitch right along that folded edge. Okay, just to show how we are flipping that back and under, once we get that first stitch line, we're going to fold it back and then wrap the rest of the zipper tab end around the zipper tape. And what we want to do is just make sure it covers that initial stitch line on the back of your zipper tape. It shouldn't be too noticeable because it's on the back of the zipper, and it will be folded up in the seam, so you shouldn't have to worry about that too much. All right, once we get that attached, we want to top stitch right along this folded edge at about 1/8 of an inch. And then as you will see on the back side, the tab is a little bit longer, and that's by design. So just trim off any excess that you have on the back. Now this is an optional step. You don't have to do that, but if you don't want a lot of extra on the back, then go ahead and trim it off. Here I'm going to use a little bit of fray check. Since I am using a fabric that might fray, I just wanted to add a little bit of that to help prevent that from happening in the future. Okay, so there is our completed zipper. Now we are ready to attach it to our exterior panels and complete the final assembly. All right, so taking our exterior panel with the zipper and then our lining panel without the card slots, so our plain lining panel and our prepped zipper, we are going to attach it to the exterior piece first. So you want your zipper tab end to the right. We are going to measure in 3/4 of an inch, and right at that mark is where we want to align our zipper tab end. So clipping that in place, we're going to clip it all the way across, and as you will notice, the zipper tape goes off of the side of the panel. So the zipper tape is longer than what we need, and that's going to help us when we put it all together. So don't worry that it's longer. We will be trimming this off in a later step. So clipping that straight across. Now optionally you could base stitch this on, or just take your lining panel, flipping it over so it is right sides together, and then clipping that in place. So like I said, if you wanted to base stitch your zipper first before doing this, you are more than welcome to. If you just want to clip all 3 pieces together at once, you can do that as well. All right, now flipping the panel over to the back side, what we need to do is mark a spot again that is 3/4 of an inch in from the right side. So when we laid the zipper tape down, we measured in 3/4 of an inch from the right side. Now on this side, we need to do the same 3/4 of an inch. So we're measuring in the same amount from both sides. Okay, and then that is where we are going to be sewing. We're going to start right here at the top, sew all the way down until we get to that marked line. We're using the seam allowance provided in the instructions. Once you get to that marked line, you're going to leave your needle down. In the down position, you're going to separate your zipper teeth. I'm going to use my pen here to simulate the needle. Once you get to that point, you're going to pull that zipper tape over to the right and then continue sewing straight to the end. Okay, once you have that stitched, what you need to do is to trim off this little zipper tab excess here. So just trim that right off. And then what I like to do is use my lighter to just singe that a little bit, and that should help to prevent any fraying on that zipper end. Now the last thing we need to do here is fold this panel back. So we are only folding the exterior back, keeping the lining off to the side. The seam allowance is going towards the right, so it'll be with our exterior piece off to the right, lining panel off to the left. We're only stitching through the exterior, and we're going to top stitch right along this folded edge along the zipper at 1/8 inch seam allowance. Okay, once you get that stitched, now we just need to fold our lining panel back out of the way so that we can attach the exterior and lining to the other side of the zipper. What I like to do here is just add a couple clips to help hold it in place. It's not really any function other than to keep everything together and out of the way as I'm sewing on the other panels. So grabbing our remaining exterior and lining panels, what we're going to do is attach these to the other side of the zipper. So with our exterior panel right side up, we're going to flip our completed zipper panel right side down, and measuring in again at 3/4 of an inch in from the left side. That's where we're going to match up that zipper tab end right there along that marked line, and then we are going to clip it in place all the way across, just like we did on the other side. You have the option to baste stitch the zipper to the exterior panel if you want to, or just attach the lining panel and we'll sew it all together at once. Grabbing your card slot panel, we are going to attach this to the zipper now, but it is very important to make sure that your panel is right sides up. So make sure your card slots are opening to the top, otherwise you'll be quite sad when you open up your finished clutch wallet and find out that your card slots are upside down. So attaching the top side of that panel, and again, if you marked the T and the B on the bottom, that should help you to know which was the top. We're going to attach that to the straight end of the zipper. And again, we are going to measure in 3/4 of an inch here, in from this side, just like we did on the other side, so that we are sewing at the same amount, 3/4 of an inch. I'm just making sure that my seams are correct here. And just like we did on the other panel, we are going to now sew down at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, stopping at that 3/4 of an inch with our needle down, pull the zipper tape off to the side, and then continue sewing to the end. Once you get that done, you're going to flip it over, flip that exterior panel back and away from the zipper, and then top stitch down that folded edge. Okay, once you get all of that sewn together, you can fold your lining panels back so that this is what you have. You can see each side together, top stitched, everything looks great. Now what we need to do is put it together. So we are going to open up our center zipper to the middle so that it stays out of the way. And then we are going to put the exterior panels right sides together and the lining panels right sides together. On that front zipper, you want your zipper towards the top so it stays out of the bottom seam. You don't want to be trying to sew over your zipper pull. All right, and then matching up that side seam right there. Again, matching up the other side, and then you want your zipper pushed towards the lining side and clip in place. And then we are just going to clip all the way around. Okay, once you get that clipped, now we need to make sure that we leave a turning hole as we stitch all the way around. So we're going to start from one side. What I like to do is leave that center open. I'm probably going to leave a couple stitches on either side of that line, but I like to use the stitch lines from the card slot panel as my guide for starting and stopping. So starting on one side, we're going to stitch all the way around, stopping at the other side. Do a couple back stitches at each side. If you are using a 1/4 inch seam allowance for your exterior, increase to 3/8 inch seam allowance for your lining panels, and this will just help to ensure that you don't have a saggy baggy lining inside of your bag once you turn it through. Okay, here's our sewn panel with our turning hole left open here in the bottom. Now what we need to do is just trim the seam allowance back by about half. In the corners I will cut on an angle, and that should help that corner to poke out nicely once we turn it through. And I'm just going to trim all the way around. Okay, and since I did trim the bottom of that zipper just a little bit on the front panel, I'm just using my lighter here again to try to get in there and singe that zipper tape just a little bit to help to prevent any fraying. Once you get that done, you are ready to turn it through. So you're going to reach into the inside, press the zipper so that it is all the way out of the way. Grab the bottom of your panel and just start working it through. Now you can use a pen or a turning tool of your choice to poke out those corners so that you have nicely shaped corners. Make sure everything is poked out nicely on the lining as well. And then the last thing we need to do here is to close the opening where we turned the panel through. So we are going to take the fabric and turn it under by the seam allowance. Because we have that stitch line, that should help us to know where that line should be, where we should turn it under. And we're just going to fold it under, and I like to clip it in place all the way across as I go. That just helps it to stay in place until I can get to the sewing machine. So it could be a little thick here because of the card slots. So just take your time. You could use double-sided tape. You could also use some fabric glue if you wanted to help hold it in place, but I find that clips usually work really well. Okay, now the last thing we need to do here is just sew straight across to close that opening. We want to sew it at about between 1/8 and 1/16 of an inch. So I like to say get as close to the edge of the fabric as you can while still catching both sides of the seam. Okay, once that is stitched, the last thing we have to do here is to push the lining back inside of your bag. So just working it in, make sure you push those corners out really well. And you can see how your lining is laying inside of your bag, looking super cute with that little label in there. And the last thing that we have to do here is to attach our wrist strap. Since I'm using a zipper pull with an opening in it, I'm able to attach the wrist strap right to the zipper pull here on the top. If you don't have a zipper pull with an opening on it, you could add a D-ring tab to the side of your bag here, and then you would just attach your wrist strap to that side D-ring tab. Personally, I think it's really cute with the wrist strap attached to the zipper pull. It makes it for easy opening and closing. And there you have it. There is your completed Essentials wallet clutch. Okay, final thoughts on the Essentials wallet clutch. Now, I may be a little biased, but I do have a special affinity for this pattern as it was the very first pattern that I ever designed. and I'm just blown away by all of the love that y'all have shown this pattern. I think it's so cute. It's just this cutest little clutch. It has 3 card slots inside with a little pocket. It would be great for a night out, or if you just want to throw something into a bag, you could put some cards in there, some keys, cash, gum, lip gloss, and then you have the front slip pocket, or the zipper pocket, I should say, so that you could put anything that you would like to keep separate in there. And then you have the little wrist strap. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being a part of my community and for loving my patterns. I really, really appreciate you guys. And I hope you're able to sew up an Essentials wallet clutch. Again, this one I made with waterproof canvas, and I did not use any lining on any of it. So it is a little bit floppy, or not floppy, but it's a little flexible. And I think for this size of a bag, you really don't want a lot of structure, so I think this works perfectly. All right, thank you so much, guys. Thank you for participating in my video today. And if you do make an Essentials wallet clutch, please tag me on social media because I love to see what you make.